Hi everyone, and welcome back to Beings of Randomness, in the first ever official episode. There will be a few changes to my approach, like the preparation time and the displaying references. You'll all see what I mean soon enough. Also, I'm gonna be using my 4th generation iPad Pro for this. I figured it would allow me to record longer since there's less storage space filled up. But just in theory. Okay, without further ado, let's get started. Okay, our first copyright adjective. Wing semblance to the creature of destruction. If you want to know what that means, it's from a show called Winx Club that I collected. Okay, let's copy and paste this into notes. Okay. Put this here. Alright, now let's look for a noun. If another adjective shows up, that means it's just gonna be more compounds. Alright, let's look. Okay, that was quick. A bat. A Sowell's short-tailed bat. That will be our noun. Alright. Let's take this, put it here. Alright, now that we have our components, I'm gonna go gather some reference and get this started. Until then, I'll see you guys later. And here we go. Like I stated in the pilot, I'd use a new method of displaying references. And here it is. This time I'm using a picture from the photo library instead of the canvas itself. The images were copied, pasted, and gathered in pic collage before exporting. I even took some notes of the component facts from their respective wikis to influence the design a bit, and also work out its bio, which will be revealed after the design process. But first, I'm gonna lay down some rough design sketches before pinpointing what's more to my likeness. Alright, so here are the concept sketches. Now let's choose which feature I like the most. Okay, so I like the wings on this one, and also the placement of the tendrils, like around here and here, as well as the head markings. But I also like the dynamic sketch here, but I think this one goes best. And I like the wing hand stance more than the separate thing. That is a bit way too similar to this one. And also I like the teeth right here. It gives it more of a semblance, but it's not directly copyrighting. I'll also make the membrane glow. So I'm gonna highlight this too. Okay. This one. This and the tendrils. Okay. Well, now that we got the sketches, let's get things started. During the process of sketching out the creature, I took my usage of the Elastify tool to a whole new level by applying it to the creature's body parts after dividing them up into different individual layers. I felt that this would help me shape out the creature's silhouette better than when they're all together in one layer, since it could help me focus on a chosen body part, while the other body parts remain intact, without being an interference. It sure made the process of elastifying the Lineart sketches way less of a chore. The only exceptions would be the wings and the membrane, but I can't say that was the biggest challenge in the process. That comes much later, but that's supposed to be expected at this point. Until then, I'll see you guys back when I start deciding the creature's color scheme, which also isn't the hardest. Planning the creature's color scheme also took some time to improvise, especially because of one of the components generated being a copyrighted character from an actual series. I didn't just want its colors to just flat out match the Creature of Darkness, but just rather follow a similar color theory while still looking somewhat original. Better to be safe than sorry, even if I think the Creature of Darkness is obscure. So to remedy that, I created my creature's color palette by extracting the hues of the Creature of Darkness's color theory, and then playing around with the saturation and brightness within set hues to create a color palette that, although has the same theory as the Creature of Darkness, still manages to be more distinct. I also made it so that it would have the aspects of the Sowell's short-tailed bat, the other generated component. Another similar art hack I came up with to speed up the process was when I started doing the final line art for the bat. Basically, it's a new method of crosshatching, where I divide the brush strokes into two different layer sections with two different colors, and then merge the layers into one, and then fill them up in one color with the transparency locked. With this method, I'm able to see where the two lines meet and make the process faster, easier, and more precise. I don't know if this method has already been done by other artists or not, but if it's the latter, I wouldn't be too surprised if it blows over in the community, if it hasn't already. Now, enjoy the process of me refining the colors into the final base, and I'll be back once I start designing the background. I made sure that I make the background much more simpler than the one I attempted in the pilot episode with Kata. You know, the pheasant that can turn into a dinosaur. Yeah, you guys remember that. Though it still offers its own set of challenges, but that's probably just me being prematurely critical. This time I attempted to follow an art tutorial I found on DeviantArt made by the Z-Gray on how to draw forests. Starting with the simple shapes and then gradually into more pedantic details, like the leaves and the details on the branches. If you guys want to try it out, I left a link in the description below, the original image. Anyways, my attempts to follow the tutorial were a bit loose in the end, if not completely inaccurate, but I'm not too disappointed since, this is an overhead view of the top of a jungle canopy, so the details are gonna be a bit more minimal compared to seeing a forest from standing inside it. I even created an implication that the canopies are high with different stories, but added shading beneath the upper story's leaves and not show the trunks with the rooted bases. The Mayan tombs were simplified with lineless geometric shapes. Granted, I could have taken more time to make them look detailed, but I decided to rely once more on the fact that it's an overhead view and rely more on the texture overlay to make it less plain to the viewer's eyes. And also the fact that the background takes place during nighttime. Speaking of the night sky, I think that was the piece that really added the finishing touch to the background, especially the moon. It's surprising how the usual usage of custom brushes, layer effects, and gradients can surprise us if we plan ahead and execute it properly. It turned out much better than I anticipated, and not gonna lie, the process of replicating it was... But that doesn't even compare to the next step, which is shading. I'll see you guys then. When I reached the point of adding shading to the bat, I decided to maybe add a new mix to the process. You know, a new step to change things up a bit. Usually my shading just consists of shadows and lighting that are casted onto a creature or a character by the environment. But this time I added anatomical shading for the purpose of making the creature look more three-dimensional. The usual shadows and lighting would overlay it, of course, and even add more to the body and give the creature even further depth in its appearance. Enjoy this process, and I'll see you guys at the very end, where I'll unveil the creature's lore. Even during ancient times, no one really knew of when these massive chiropteran creatures started making themselves known, soaring through the night skies above the abandoned tombs of the Mexican rainforests that they call their lairs. But once they do, their presence is hard to overlook. With their purple-streaked fur and the almost ethereal glow of their wing membrane, Daemocarollia psychosis is pretty hard to miss. Its appearance makes it hard to hide from potential enemies, but that doesn't really hinder the Daemocarollia's mortality, since it makes up for its lack of subtlety by its sheer ferocity and aggression that almost borders across sadism. If the intruders can't seem to take a hint and retreat while they have a chance, it will mercilessly attack with relentlessness and lacerations from its foot talons and its hook-like teeth, which seem to blend seamlessly into its lips, forming its maw into a perpetual snaggletooth grimace. If anything even gets lucky enough to get away from the Daemocarollia's attacks, getting away from the creature's territory completely should be priority 1 to ensure their survival, since the Daemocarollia would still be able to sense them with its echolocation, as well as the elongated tendrils that allow it to sense the air surrounding it for organisms. But despite its vicious disposition and its predatory features, the Daemocarollia's diet is actually largely frugivorous, feasting on the fleshy fruits that grow among the trees, and storing large amounts of them in the tombs as an emergency stash. The tendrils also play a part in its gathering, since they bear taste buds which seem to allow Daemocarollia to actually taste the fruits to analyze their freshness before devouring or hoarding them, or if they are rotten, discard them. Due to its large size and ferocity, the Daemocarollia is largely solitary in nature, though surprisingly, they are pretty tolerant towards others of its kind, despite still giving each other a wide berth, outside of attracting mates by perching upon the top of their tombs and broadcasting itself with loud screeching, wing flapping, and waving their tendrils. Daemocarollia's mating and courtship rituals are quite enigmatic, since they do so in extreme altitudes, so high above the clouds that it's unknown how they stay airborne and respirate during the process. The natives believe that these animals might be the heritable descendants of Camazotz, a mythological bat god that is associated with night, death, and sacrifice, and cryptozoologists speculate that it might be a giant herbivorous relative of the extinct Desmodus draculae, a large relative of the modern-day vampire bats. Although the latter might be a misnomer caused by articles comparing it to the fictionalized larger-than-truth depiction of Desmodus in the Fjordur DLC of the Steam game Ark Survival Evolved. Well, there you have it, the first episode of Beings of Randomness. And honestly, I thought developing a shorter episode would require less effort than when I developed the pilot. But other than joining the clips, it was still pretty hard work. I mean, it took weeks. I also had to use Plus Transfer to move my clips to the PC, since my 4th generation iPad Pro doesn't come with a cable to connect it to the Orlando drive. This is what I meant by all the changes that come with this episode. And there will be plenty more in future episodes that I might experiment with. Who knows? Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.